Good evening, and welcome to the League of Women Voters of the Stevens Point Area 2018 General Election Candidate Forum. I am Deb Knippel, co-coordinator of the League of Women Voters Stevens Point Area. Jan Seiler over there is the other co-coordinator. The League of Women Voters was formed in 1920 after a 75-year struggle to pass the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. The Stevens Point League began in 1961. We've been going strong ever since. In addition to voting rights advocacy, the League of Women Voters encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government, but the League is always working on vital issues of concern to members and the public. The League of Women Voters has a long history, almost 100 years, of becoming informed and taking action on important issues facing our country. Membership is open to women and men 18 years of age and over. Membership materials are over on the counter at the side of the room. If you need assistance or have a question during the evening, you may ask any of our members who are identified by wearing a League of Women Voter button. And remember to vote on Tuesday, April 3rd. We are recording this forum tonight, and it will be on Community TV Channel 984 and can be seen on the city's website, stevenspoint.com, and the city's YouTube channel at your convenience. The March 5th forum will be shown on Friday, March 9th at 8 p.m., Saturday, March 10th at 1:30 and 9 p.m., and Monday, March 12th at 5:30 p.m. We also will have a forum on March 15th, and that will be shown on Friday, March 23rd at 8 p.m., Saturday, March 24th at 1:30 and 9 p.m., and Monday, March 26th at 5:30 p.m. Now, I would like to introduce Christine Nightline, who will moderate our candidate forum this evening.
Thank you, Deb. Our first segment this evening is for city alderpersons in District 8. It's one of 11 districts, northeast section of the city of Stevens Point. The regular city council meetings are on the third Monday of the month at 7 p.m., and all alderpersons also serve on committees of the city council. The Stevens Point City Council includes, I guess I already said that, alderpersons representing 11 districts. Alderpersons from the even-numbered districts are elected the first Tuesday in April in even-numbered years. They are elected for 2-year terms, and those alderpersons elected this April will earn an annual salary of $5,300. What is the role of an alderperson? They represent the interests of the district's constituents as well as those of the entire city. They set the city's policy direction, considering constituent ideas and city staff expertise, as well as relevant evidence and data from a wide range of sources. They have policy-making authority only as a voting member of the council. So they serve as a link between the district residents and the city in resolving issues, needs, and complaints. They communicate with residents using a wide variety of means. They attend the Common Council, committee, and board meetings. They participate in setting the budget and borrowing to finance capital improvement projects. They submit proposals and initiatives for consideration by the Common Council. They consider an override of mayoral vetoes, and they conduct themselves in a manner appropriate to the office. So tonight we have Kathy Dugan and Lori Schulist as the two,
Lynn
Schulist, as the candidates for District 8. First, we will have them give opening statements, and all the statements and the questions, the answers that they give will be 2 minutes in length. We have timers who will let them know when their time is up, and we'll let them finish a sentence, and then I'm going to just cut them off. So, okay, so to begin with, Kathy, would you like to begin with your opening statement?
Sure.
I thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to speak, and I thank all of you in the audience for attending the forum. I am Kathy Dugan, the Alderperson for District 8 since 2016. Oops, I forgot this. Can you hear me back there? You can see, oh, good, good. All right, is this even better? Yeah. All right. Anyway, I've been the Alderperson for District 8 since 2016. I'm running for re-election to serve just one more two-year term. I need one more term to finish what I began in District 8 and to help the City Council finish what we have begun together. This is my background. I grew up in Northern Illinois, and I moved to Stevens Point with my young family in the 1970s. I raised 2 daughters in Point. I graduated from UWSP as a non-traditional student with degrees in English and German, and I became a teacher. I taught at Mid-State Technical College when it was in the other building, and I retired from UWSP. I've lived in District 8 for 24 years. I've been active in city government issues for 21 years. I'm running for City Council because citizens deserve a representative with a depth of knowledge and with experience. I know District 8, I know Stevens Point, and I know city government. Thank you.
And Lynn, your opening statement.
Well, hello. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I know we have a storm on the way, so I appreciate everyone's bravery, I guess, and hopefully we'll get home all safe. And also thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this on. It's no small task. So I am Lynn Schulist. I am a 5th-generation Wisconsin resident. I grew up on Wadley Lake in the Shantytown area in the town of Brevent. I also grew up in the construction industry. My dad, who happens to be right over there, we had a small family business. He was a general contractor who served in Stevens Point for over 50 years, and I was a part of that business from little on, whether it was typing contracts, picking up materials, you name it. With that, it gave me a value of hard work, tenacity, and dedication in all things I do and things that I will bring to City Council if elected. I graduated from Rothschild High School and I attended UWSP for an undergraduate degree, and I obtained my Master's of Business Administration from the University of Liverpool. I currently work in brand and marketing strategy for Capital One, and over the past 10 years, I've had the privilege to work with some of the largest brands in the U.S. With co-branded credit card programs. I have a 16-year-old son. He goes to SPASH. He's at basketball practice right now, so go Panthers. And you know, I think a lot of candidates, and Kathy would agree as well, we all love Stevens Point. That's why we're here. And in addition to that, because of my deep family roots in the area, I want to ensure the best decisions are made to ensure sustainable growth and prosperity for generations to come.
Thank you, Lynn. Members of the audience, too, I wanted to bring to your attention, if you have questions that you would like to submit for the candidates, we have 2 ushers here tonight. Lynn over here has cards and pencils, and Mary Mahler here has cards and pencils. Just motion to them, and they'll give you the card, and then they'll get your questions to the moderator eventually. So please feel free to weigh in with any questions you might have. It would have to be a question for both candidates. Thank you. Okay, our first question tonight is from the League. And this question is, what are the unique characteristics of District 8? How are you the best candidate to address the district's need? And how will you assure that citizens have input in the decisions made by the City Council? And Lynn, would you take that question first, please?
Okay, so characteristics, how to communicate.
I can repeat it. Would you like me
Please.
to repeat it?
Yeah,
Sure.
just so I can,
okay.
because there is several parts.
Okay.
And I don't want to miss
What are the
anything.
unique characteristics of District 8?
Okay.
How are you the best candidate to address the district's need? And how will you assure that citizens have input in the decisions made by the City Council?
Okay.
Okay.
District 8 is very unique from a socioeconomic standpoint. We have all types of housing, several different kind of subdivisions. I think what's really cool about it, the area where I live, I think one constituent described it as kind of rural suburbia. You have a lot of trees. You don't necessarily have sidewalks, but since the streets aren't too busy, you still can feel safe and whatnot. How I would be the best candidate, I think, I have a lot of energy, a lot of desire to serve the people. I have gone out when it was below zero, knocking on doors in all different weather conditions, you name it. I think that tenacity can show through, not only, as I'm campaigning, but being available to everyone no matter what, like the mailman. And how to assure that citizens are included in discussions. I think, as a marketer, I know that different people want to be communicated in different ways. With that being said, it's going to take a multifaceted way of communicating with people, learning how people would best like to be communicated. Some it's social media, some it's picking up the phone and chatting with them. Other people would prefer listening sessions or neighborhood meetings. So I think it would take a combination of several modes of communication in order to effectively do that. Thank you.
Okay, our next question. Redesigns of streets, like narrowing lands.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, Kathy, go ahead. Onward.
Yes, I just wrote notes so I could answer you. Yeah, I've lived in District 8, as I said, for 24 years, and it is unique, and my husband and I moved there. Because it was close to the university, both of us were working there. You could walk and bicycle to it. It's green, and it is a little bit like, being on the edge of the rural Wisconsin, and we actually are. I live on Regent Street, which is just a few yards from Hull. We're very close to the township. It's unique in that it is vast. It goes all the way out to the airport. It goes out to Brulowski Road, and there's one of Brulowski Road residents. It goes up Torrin Road, different neighborhoods. And I've been involved in several of those neighborhoods and getting them organized. Why am I the best candidate? Because I know the district. I know lots of the residents who've been there a long time. I've walked it, I've biked it. I know what the housing is like. I know what people's needs are in great part. I know they need resurfaced streets in many areas.
Could you use the mic, please?
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I know that well, there are a number of things that we could use. But communication, I have used most of them. Email, phone calls, neighborhood meetings to get the neighborhood association started, and lots of listening sessions and informational meetings that I or a colleague and the city council, David Shore, hosted, as well as the mayor has had his hand in it as well. There are lots of different ways to get hold of people. I've got an email list, and would like to continue doing that. Thank you.
Okay, now the next question.
It's for me, I suppose.
It is.
All right.
Redesigns of streets, like narrowing lanes, adding bike and turning lanes, have been proven to increase safety for vehicles, bikers, and walkers. Do you support using these methods in redesigning our city streets? And Kathy, will you take that one first, please?
Yes, I will. It's been controversial in District 8, as many of you know, because we've first discussed it in regard to Stanley Street. It will be probably considered for Business 51, as well as North Point Drive, and there are other areas. When I was thinking about answering this question, I assumed it might come up. I have had so much input on this. People at listening sessions, some say, yes, let's try striping. It's going to help me get across the street over to Schmeekley. Some say Stanley works fine for those of us who are commuting in and out of Stevens Point. It gets us in quickly, it gets us out quickly, to our jobs, to Century, to the university, to the hospital. But there are a number of people who also, whether they think that striping might work or they don't, because there are a lot of people who don't think we should do any striping, most of those people say, we do have problems on Stanley. So how can we do it? They have lots of different ideas, except striping is not always one of them. But then we go to city council members like me, and there's a contingent of people on city council who have studied it pretty thoroughly, and they are very, very supportive of a road diet, so to speak. And then I go to the experts. I've talked to 4 civil engineers, 2 of them public works directors for Stevens Point, our former one and our current one, and also a former alderperson on the city council who was a civil engineer, and then another civil engineer who weighed in. All of them, with their expertise, tell us that striping for 4 to 3 is the answer. And then one of our candidates, who is no longer in the running, said, why don't we, try it for 5 years.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
So that's probably where I am.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, this is obviously a very controversial issue, and I've talked to many constituents, especially those that live on Stanley Street, at great length. I think this situation can work well for the right street and the right scenario. Because Stanley Street runs through District 8, or part of District 8, I believe thoroughly that this is not the answer for this situation. Yes, there have been studies and some examples of where it worked. However, anytime I look at any situation, I want to have a balanced view. That means both sides. And I've found 6 or 7 scenarios where this situation did not work. They ended up restriping it back because the city was sued. Businesses went down by 30% because there was more traffic congestion and backup. Stanley Street, again, growing up, living more in the Shantytown area, I travel in on Stanley Street, know a lot of other people that do, from Rothschild, Ellis, Polonia, Iola, etc. And it is the main corridor to go through Stevens Point. You also have to be careful that if you're backing up traffic during rush hours, people will get frustrated and they'll try to go on the side streets which are not built for the additional traffic. With that being said, I'm not opposed to it altogether. It's right in the right situation. Stanley Street is not the right situation for this, and given the numerous business owners and constituents I spoke with, not only in District 8, but also District 2, who had reached out to me, agree that this would cause more havoc than helping the situation.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. What housing opportunities are still needed in this city? Are you in favor of adding higher density housing in existing neighborhoods? And that will go first to Lynn.
I think with that question, we can go back to the recent housing study. There is a need for homes in the, I believe, $150,000 to $300,000 range for younger families, younger professionals. I know it was a challenge for myself to find a place within my budget, going in, having multiple bidders, within 24 hours after a home comes on the market is not very fun. And I even have a friend who is moving here from the Wausau area due to job opportunities, and they reached out to me with the same frustration. And from what I understand from realtors that I know, that the housing stock is the lowest that it is right now. So I think we need more housing. I am open to wherever it makes sense, and will not, completely impact negatively the people in the surrounding areas. I know when you get into higher density housing, it sounds great. People like the idea, but if it happens to be coming in your area, you definitely have a little bit of, oh, not in my neighborhood. So I think, that's something that the council and the city really needs to discuss and educate people on why we need this, because it is the most economically viable way. There also could be some opportunities for maybe some lower income type of housing. I don't know if this is realistic or not, but I just read an article this morning about young professionals living in these dormitory type communes, that they can save a lot of money and have a safe place to live. And basically it's a dorm room for adults. Would it work in Stevens Point? I don't know, but there are a lot of opportunities out there.
All right, my turn.
Kathy Dugan.
Even though you haven't mentioned it. I read the same article. Oh, really? Yes. Okay, great. It was in the New York Times, I believe. Yeah. I was part of the housing study group that met for some time with our consultant. Very pleased that that was done. Every resident in Point was evaluated. We have multiple needs in Stevens Point. We need apartments with good amenities and safe features. We have way too many apartments for particularly students. They're living in odd situations that aren't safe, so we need more and more of that. Where do we do that? Well, we can do that near the university and get them out of the single-family houses that were, cut up to be for students at one time. That means we might, if we're lucky, have more single-family houses in the older housing stock, and that leads to rehabbing and rehabilitating those houses, turning them back to single-family, and then being able to allow people who don't have the money to buy a $200,000 house, they need something for $100,000 or less. We have now programs that are coming online through the Redevelopment Authority that will help people gain those houses. High density, well, it's infill, and it's much better than continuing to spread out, and into the farmland and into the forest land. But we need a little of that too, and we have indeed bought some property for future use for residential area. High density infill, I've got some going on right next to me, a few blocks from you, and it's tough because the construction process lasts so long.
Thank you. Our next question is from the audience. What infrastructure do you view as a priority and a realistic goal for the city of Stevens Point to invest in to keep our young citizens here? And that question will go first to Kathy Dugan.
It's interesting. Infrastructure to keep our young citizens here. Well, I hadn't thought about it from that point of view. Certainly, the streets ought to be better, and the streets in District 8 are in great need of not just filling potholes, but resurfacing them. And that's for bicycling, and that's for also for walking. Lots of young people would really, I think, love to be biking around town, as I did when I was young, and I still do. Things are a little bit different now, because there are more cars on the road, they're going too fast often. That kind of infrastructure, I think, would help a good deal to bring, well, I think it would appeal to young people, certainly appeals to those of us who are older. That means perhaps better sidewalks for walking. I have lots of people in the neighborhood walking their dogs, and walking their kids, little tiny kids. They need a safe place to do that. They don't need to be run over by a car. We need good sidewalks. We need to fill in the gaps in District 8, and we're doing that now. Lots of people don't like that, but it's working. And we need bicycle accommodations. That's sort of a naughty word, but it shouldn't be. We need bicycle striping, if we can manage it, to make it safe for people to ride. We also need, I don't know what you'd call this, infrastructure, but we need better bus services. We have transit, but we need more of it. And that helps people get around if you don't have a car. We've got an awful lot of people in the district, 54% in the city, who are in poverty or just scraping by. That's a terrible statistic. Those people don't always have transportation. So we need to think of them when we're doing infrastructure, as well as, young professionals.
Would you like the question repeated, Lynn, or
I'm good to go.
you're good to go? Thank you.
As a younger professional myself and having many young professional friends in the community, the answer isn't necessarily infrastructure, it's jobs, good paying jobs. That's what's going to draw people in, and that's what is going to keep them. Like I mentioned earlier, we have friends from Wausau trying to find a place to live that isn't a college or student housing, that received a very good job in the area. They are there. I think this community has a lot of great things to offer. The Green Circle Trail, with the university, there's a lot of different events going on. You can plug into great restaurants, things to do that are lower cost. As far as infrastructure goes, I think, this is a question depending on your life cycle, because with younger children, you want good parks and great children's activities, but I feel we have an answer to that with the Children's Museum, as well as all the great parks that they offer. One other thing I want to point out with adding infrastructure comes cost. A lot of people in District 8 had their taxes go up this year, and when you want to add things, it's going to cost money. So that is a decision we need to make if we are going to add infrastructure to keep young citizens here. But ultimately, I think the answer is attracting employers that will offer good paying jobs for those young citizens to stay here.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, and Lynn Chulis, you'll go first for this next one. What is your main priority for the city and your constituents over the next 2 years during your term in office?
I think my main priority, what I heard loud and clear from many of my supporters, is try to keep taxes down, making sure they don't go up again, and spend our tax dollars wisely. We have some big expenditures coming up. The solution, it sounds like we will be building a new city hall, ensuring that we're not going overboard on costs, growing up again in the building industry. I know where you can increase costs and where you can save costs and still have a great end product. It's just keeping everyone accountable, and I think that's an important facet of those on city council, and I think it's really listening to the citizens, being there for them, and helping, reflect their wants and needs at city council.
Thank you. Kathy Dugan.
Main priority for the district or the city? Both.
The city
For
and
the
your
city.
and your constituents.
Yeah. Main priority for the city, well, I mean, the biggest thing that's coming up is relocation of City Hall. We have purchased land. We have hired a preliminary architect, and that's probably the most serious thing we will be taking action on in the next 2 years. I've been privy to those conversations, many of them behind closed session. I said in our last forum that I wish that we could have figured out how to get space in that wonderful city-county building, but no, we can't, and we are proceeding forward. It's going to be a major effort. However, we have the borrowing capacity to do that, and I don't want you to be concerned with our fiscal responsibility, so to speak. We have never been in such a great, not in the time that I've really been looking at this. We were in kind of bad straits a few years ago when we had a referendum and spent a great deal of money downtown, but that was important too. But we got caught up with that, and now when we borrow, we also pay off debt. We don't borrow without paying off debt. And we also don't go above our, 60% of the legally allowed amount to borrow. So I'm not worried about that. And we've got one of the best controller treasurers, I think, in the state to take care of us, a former banker. So, yeah, the main priority is relocation of City Hall.
Thank you. Forgive me, this is my first time doing this. Thank you for your patience. Lynn, did you answer this question on the priorities? Yes, you did. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, this question then goes first to Kathy. Dugan, what is the city council doing to address issues of poverty among us? How can local government help all our citizens more fully and participate in our economy?
Well, I've been addressing this for some time. Some of you know that on public protection, I brought up the issue of our needing a living wage in this community. We do have 54% of the people in Stevens Point who are in poverty or below poverty or just scraping by. You need to look at the ALICE report, the asset limited, income constrained, employed. All these folks are employed. We're talking about employed people. They don't make enough money. They're making $10 an hour, $8 an hour. They're working 2 or 3 jobs. If you've got a couple of little kids, you need, and maybe you have, little ones, and they don't cost as much as the bigger ones, and a couple of adults, you need $57,000 a year to scrape by. Sounds like a lot. Nope, most jobs here don't do that. We need family-sustaining jobs. And how do we get them? How can the city work? First of all, we need to educate more people. And the United Way is doing that. The League has had a presentation on it. The next thing I would like to do is bring a number of people together, not just Sue Wilcox from the United Way and Mary Patoka from CAP Services, but also, I think it's Jerome Segura from the university. He took, he's a marvelous data producer on where the bad jobs are, where the good jobs could be, and how we can encourage our current employers to perhaps do a little bit more. Now, what we could do on City Council, there may be 4 or 5 things we could do, but I think the biggest thing is when we promise to give incentives to new businesses coming in or to the current businesses adding on to their properties, we'll say, yeah, we'll help you with infrastructure, utilities, roads, etc. But how many jobs are you going to give us? Are they full-time? Do they have benefits? And can you meet this criteria? This is the cost of living in Stevens Point. Can you pay enough to keep families afloat? That would take a lot of political will. I'm willing to do that in the next couple of years, and I'm willing to try to get my fellow council people to do that.
Thank you, Kathy. Lynn Schulist.
I agree. There are a lot of low-paying jobs in the city and in the immediate area. I think what we need to do as a city council, is be more aggressive in going out and recruiting for more better-paying manufacturing jobs. Not everyone is meant to go to college or is a school person. Think about, not so long ago, it was relatively easy to graduate high school, get a job at the mill, and make pretty good money, and have opportunities at the mill to move up the ladder if you work hard, etc. Those opportunities have slowly gone away. I think Stevens Point has done a great job of attracting and retaining more white-collar jobs. For those, most of them require a 4-year degree, maybe a 2-year degree. Again, we need to do more to attract those manufacturing jobs that can provide family living wages for those that don't necessarily need a degree.
Thank you. Remember, audience members, you can submit questions too for the candidates. Keep our ushers busy tonight. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question, and this will go first to Lynn. Yes. In what ways can city alderpersons work productively with county supervisors to benefit people in Portage County?
This is a great question. The sense I get as more of a government outsider coming in and is there has been a bit of a curtain between the city and county government. Not that they don't get along, but I think there are areas of opportunity for collaboration. I think we should see each other at each other's meetings. City council members should attend county meetings and vice versa, to really understand how we can work together and help each other out. Because I think at the end of the day, we all have the same goal. We want to make the community as livable as possible within the means and resources we have available.
Okay, I'm up. Well, I have one in the works, so to speak. We will have a new county supervisor for District 8, Joan Honnell. She's running for the first time and unopposed, and I will definitely be working with her, particularly on clarifying the boundaries with the town of Hull. And they need clarification because occasionally, not too often, thank goodness, occasionally the city forgets that we're doing the road, or the city forgets that the police, when they get a call, need to go there. Yes, that's our jurisdiction. That's happened before. Or where I live, we have a real mess on the boundary. We've had a couple of those mess on the boundary, where nobody quite knows who's responsible for doing property maintenance there. Should the city get on the case of the owner who's not cleaning up the property, or should it be the county? And on and on and on. There is a new program afoot. Program, I would say, and that is for the county with Jeff Schuler, Plan Commissioner, and not Plan Commissioner, but Planner, to work with the city and to work with the town of Hull to clarify those boundaries, not just to discover which jurisdiction is in charge there, but also to figure out, do we really need to have almost little peninsulas of Hull sticking right in the middle of Stevens Point? Stevens Point surrounding, it's almost like islands, but there are little connections. Our housing study, the consultant who talked to us about housing said, you really need to clear up some of that. Some of that should not be happening. You need to, this should be Stevens Point when they're really close in, where I am, by the way. So it's that. It's trying to negotiate with Hull. We can give you this if you give us this. Can you agree to this? Can you agree to that? And that's controversial. People haven't wanted to do that. I had people last year out on Somerset? Yeah, in that Somerset subdivision area off Torren Road ask, oh, is it red? Oh, I love to give examples, sorry.
Okay, our next question, this will be Kathy Dugan first. What are some of your ideas for continued revitalization of downtown Stevens Point?
Oh, more ideas. We've done such a good job over the last, 5 or 6 years. It's so much more vital than it was. We still have more to do, quite a bit more to do. We continue working on the cleanup of contamination, soil contamination, on the former Lullaby site across the street. We continue working with ACOM, the designer and engineer of cleanup programs, and we're doing well. Lullaby is pretty much done. But we have also had some contamination here on this side. It was a dry cleaners at one time. Some of you may want, in those days, people just threw the dry cleaning chemicals down into the water, and we have, you might see a big mechanical thing out there in the corner. It's measuring the air contamination. We don't want any of that to get into Mid-State now that's here. Probably it was before when it was the mall. So that's one thing that we still are working on, and it's the Redevelopment Authority, which is part of the city, that is working seriously on that. I was a part of that for some time. What else? We are doing really good work, I think, in encouraging people to restore and renew their storefronts. We've done some good jobs there. We have the cobblestone, apparently, I was there last night asking their staff how they're doing. They're doing very, very well. More of that sort of thing. What else could we do down here? We need to get more residences for young professionals and young families who want to live downtown, near the water. And how am I doing? I'm red. We need more of that, and we're still working on that for the Lullaby site. Thanks.
Lynn Schulist.
I think in the last 10 years, we should be very proud as a city of how much progress has been made downtown. We still have some areas of opportunity, namely the Lullaby site. However, I feel like with a lot of focus in the downtown area, other parts of our city, namely the south side on Church Street, they need a little love as well. So I think we should, when we're thinking of areas to revitalize, we should focus beyond downtown as well. Of course, encourage and welcome those opportunities. We do have TIF districts in both areas. Again, it's really working with the Redevelopment Authority. And it's a question of how aggressive do we want to be? How much do we want to put up to bring in the revitalization, whether it's downtown, the south side, and I know the north side, there have been discussions as well as some additional apartments, and we have the Century Building. But I think when we think of revitalization, we should look at it holistically from a city standpoint and make sure we're not giving away the farm either, but find ways to attract those developers and work with them to come up with something that is a mutually beneficial development.
Thank you. This next question's a long one. Timers, let's give them just a little bit more on this, maybe 2.5 minutes on this next one, if they need it, if they want it. 21 Wisconsin communities have signed up with the DNR to be Green Tier Legacy communities. Are you in favor of our city adopting the Green Tier Legacy process? If so, how will this process help Stevens Point become more proactive in its water resource management and sustainability practices? And this one, Lynn Schulist, will you take this first? And I can repeat the question too if you wish.
I think I get it.
Okay.
So ultimately, I grew up in the country or in the middle of nowhere. We couldn't see our neighbors. So I value our environment and preserving what we do have. I I know it's a balance with sustainability. Whoa, I can't even talk today. In terms of, development, because we do need growth, but also preserving what we do have and the resources that we have, including water. I am certainly not an expert. I am aware of what the Green Tier Legacy process is. I am certainly don't have a deep understanding of it, but it is something that I would take seriously into consideration, and with the information that I know at this time, I would support. We have to protect our water resources. I just started watching a documentary on Netflix called Flint Town, if everyone's familiar with Flint, Michigan, and the troubles they have had. I don't think we would ever get there, but needless to say, we do need to protect our resources, the natural beauty we do have in the area, but we have to do it in a way where we can also support growth and landowner rights. And I think that's the key, and that's always a balancing act. And it takes compromise from from both sides, in addition to researching each individual scenario deeply, understanding, the pros and cons, and, making a decision at that point in time. But ultimately, I think the Green Tier Legacy program is wonderful, and I think given, the history of this community and the desire for many in this community to protect and preserve our natural resources, it seems like a no-brainer to me.
Thank you. Kathy?
Yes, well, I think the assumption was that we were not a Green Tier Legacy community, and we are. In fact, Alder Shore from District 2 and Alder McComb from District 9 worked on that, and we are. First, Alder McComb asked those of us who had worked on the Eco-Municipality Task Force, and I was one of them. I worked on the development and land use portion of it. Asked us for our input, and what did we do? And we have something called a path to sustainability that came out of that process, the Eco-Municipality process. Well, Green Tier Legacy goes even farther, and so now we're leaping into Green Tier Legacy. What does it mean? Well, it means a whole lot of things, and you can go higher and higher the more in the hierarchy, the more that you do. I think Alder McComb said finally, when she presented the Green Tier program to all of us at council, she said, these are good ideas. We're a part of it. It's better than what we did before with the Eco-Municipality, but what we now need is someone to run the program, because that's what we asked for before, and we never got it. And so really the Eco-Municipality plan, the path to sustainability, just kind of sat on the shelf, and we're hoping that won't happen this time. Now, about water, we're taking pretty good care of our drinking water. We had to get rid of one of our wells because it was too contaminated with nitrates and other contaminants. We blend water so that we never get too high with nitrates. We have a new well out near Plover Heights that is just for that purpose. We had to get rid of one that was too nitrate filled. So we're doing better. With drinking water, we're doing better than we had been. And I watch that closely. Even in the city, I like to know how much is happening. Sustainability, the mayor would say we're doing quite a bit now, and we are doing some. We have LED lights. We have lots of things. Probably Kent Hall over there could tell us a lot more than I can sometimes in a brief minute. But we need to do more, and I think that would happen probably with a manager of sorts, an advisor of the program.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. Well, our next segment is at 6:30, so we'll we'll go a few more questions and then our closing statements.
Okay.
This will be first for Kathy Dugan. How will the new city government building be financed, and what will it mean for the taxpayers?
That's clear. How will it be financed? Well, it will be financed with, I should have prepared for this, with borrowing, of course. And as I said before, we have a borrowing plan for capital borrowing plan that is very well laid out. First time we've ever had one over a 5-year period. And this was the creation of our Controller Treasurer, Corey Laddick. And as he has said, and as I said I think earlier, when we borrow for a new project like the City Hall, we pay off some of the debt we have now. So it really just, we don't borrow more really. We're still paying about the same. I don't think it will change our taxes much at all. That said, one reason that Stevens Point taxes went up a bit this last time, it's not just because of the reassessment. All of us got reassessments if we own homes. Those reassessments had to do with state requirement that we equalize value. You know, we've got to get the value of, just the basic value of the land in the structure equalized with the market value. You know, what is your home going to sell for? Is it going to sell for 130? My home was appraised at 130, and a year later it was 155. So it did go up. But also some of the other jurisdictions went down a bit. But the city did go up a little bit because we were allowed by state law to levy a little bit more money for capital projects because we had more growth. That's the only way the current legislature and the current governor will allow us to raise the levy at all. So we did a bit. And that brings you more capital projects, more street repairs.
Lynn Schulist?
Yes, as Kathy Dugan mentioned, we are going to have to borrow money to finance the new city hall. Whether it was a brand new city hall in a standalone building or we worked with the county to provide the appropriate funding for the remodel, we would have to borrow money. I sat down with Corey Laddick, and basically how it was explained to me, there are some loans that we will be paying big chunks off. I believe it was the TIF District 1. If not, it was one of the TIF districts. So we, from a total dollar amount borrowed, we would be net neutral. Mm-hmm. However, some of that financing could come from our capital budget. This year, another reason maybe why increased taxes is because we're borrowing roughly an additional $1.5 to $1.8 million a year. That primarily is to go towards capital expenditures such as police cars, streets, etc.
Fire.
Yep, fire. I mean, we could go on and on, but anything that's a capital expenditure, parks, you name it. So ultimately, there could be some money from that budget allocated for the new city hall. Mm-hmm. So that is how it was explained to me and how I understand it.
Thank you. Okay, one last question, then we'll go into our closing statements. Under what, if any, circumstances would you support more annexation moving into more rural suburban areas that surround the city? And Lynn Schulist, will you take that one first, please? We've touched on it a little bit, but.
I think annexation, it depends on the situation, if it makes sense. Now, should we start annexing Jordan Park? No. But if it is currently adjacent to the city or very, very close, that is something that we should look at for long-term growth capabilities. I know there was land purchased, I believe it was last year on Highway 10 East. TBD is when or what they will do with it, but kind of setting our stake in the ground and, in a sense, annexing through purchase. But it's something I'm conceptually am for, but again, you have to look at the situation and use some common sense and, talk to your constituents and understand if this is the best decision for the city.
Thank you. Kathy?
Yeah, well, this is, I've watched city government, I've participated in it for a long time, and as an environmentalist, I've preferred infill to annexing and building. But, you have to decide on the situation, and originally I was unhappy with the big 700-acre purchase out on Highway R, but that's going well. Yes, we do need a place for manufacturing. I agree with you. And that is a place for manufacturing. We can't have it in town any longer. Yes, we have purchased land for possible residential use in the future out on Highway 10. If you take a look at our comprehensive plan from the last time, our future land use, and of course we're going through and preparing our comprehensive plan again, renewing it, you'll see that we're not going to jump and annex acres and acres right away, but we do have these possibilities should the city grow. The city's growing, in my view, at a good rate. If we had some enormous development here, as in the past, some of you might remember we had the Saturn car possibility. I remember George Rogers, an editor at that time, just writing an opinion piece against that because it would so change the city. The infrastructure needs would be remarkable. At any rate, yes, we have bought for the future, but we haven't gone crazy, and we haven't tried to recruit Foxcons. I think that would probably ruin Stevens Point and maybe some of the surrounding area as well. I prefer infill, but as I said before, it's a tricky one, and we need to be able to annex, as Lanchula said,
Okay,
for
Kathy.
future needs and connect it with the city.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, candidates. It's been very informative. Now, if there are topics that we didn't cover in our questions, please include them in your closing statements, and we'll start our closing statements with Lynn Schulist.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming and listening again, and again, the League of Women Voters. As I stated in the last forum, if elected, I pledge to serve and represent the constituents of District 8 in a timely manner. I would like to promote transparency and communication via multiple modes of communication, as mentioned earlier this evening. I also pledge to bring an open mind, open ears, listen to all sides of a situation before making decisions that best represents the values of District 8 constituents. Additionally, I feel I'll bring a unique lens and what many supporters have referred to or stated as new blood and diversity to the City Council. I have no personal agenda in my desire to run for City Council except to serve the people and do what's best for what the people want and what the City of Stevens Point wants. So I ask for your vote on April 3rd to bring new blood and common sense representation to District 8.
Thank you. Kathy Dugan.
I want to start with telling you what I'm most proud of in my first term. As District 8 Alderperson, I haven't even been in there 2 years. You need another 2 years. 2 years is not long enough. But I'm most proud of providing new opportunities to communicate with District 8 constituents and to take their concerns back to council. 5 neighborhood associations across District 8. I need to get those associations up and running in the next 2 years, so they will live on. Listening sessions and informational meetings held at school and at the church. I'll continue to schedule those meetings and make them a district tradition, so they will live on. Number 2, I'm proud of advocating for street improvements in District 8. I'll continue pushing to get neglected streets resurfaced. I've only been successful in getting potholes filled in. I'll continue to push for better safety and easier access for walkers, for bicyclists, and motorists on busy streets like Stanley, Main, and Green. In my first term working with City Council and city staff, I'm most proud of improving property maintenance across Stevens Point. In the next term, I will introduce new ordinances based on the city's public survey of what people want for property maintenance. And taking steps to relocate City Hall, as I've said, this may be the most important action we take in the next term. And improving housing options in Stevens Point by following our housing study recommendations. We've just begun. We have got a good start in District 8 and in the larger city. I'm asking for one more 2-year term to work on and finish initiatives. Thank you to the League, and thank you to everyone here for listening and considering what I had to say.
Thank you very much. Let's thank our candidates for their